Welcome. It's time to settle down. Let the day fall away now. Gently, quietly. Feel your body sink just a little deeper into comfort. Your arms resting softly, your breath moving slowly and steadily. You are safe. You are warm. And everything is still as you listen to the sound of my voice. Let each word become soft. Each sentence, a feather brushing gently through your thoughts. Let go. Let yourself drift as we begin our story. In a village wrapped in mist and old stone, tucked between emerald woods and golden fields, a place where time flows slowly, like honey warmed by the sun. Yeah, the morning doesn't begin with the sun. It begins with a bell, long before dawn kisses the hills, long before the roosters call, or the hearth fires crackle back to life. There is only the sound of the bell. Dung, dong. 3 slow chimes. Always 3. And only the bellringer knows why. In a moss-covered cottage, near the edge of the village, a man awakens. He is old, but not in a burdensome way. His bones are weathered like oak, his hands lined like folded parchment. He wakes not to the sound of an alarm or the crow of a bird, but to silence, a sacred kind of quiet that hums beneath the world, as though the earth itself is still asleep, breathing slow beneath the soil. The bellringer stretches beneath a woolen blanket, the kind woven thick by hand. He touches the floor with bare feet, cool stone, kissed by morning dew, seeping in through the corners of the cottage. The fire has long since gone out, but he does not light it. He dresses by lantern light, wrapping himself in a thick tunic, a leather belt, and a hooded cloak the color of wet ash. Outside, the trees stir only slightly. A hush of wind through old branches. Leaves flutter in silver moonlight, not yet ready to greet the sun. The bellringer steps outside. The village sleeps around him. Thatched roofs, topped with moss and lichen. Windows shuttered, chimneys still. He walks alone along the cobbled path, boots clicking gently on stone. Past the baker's shop, the blacksmith's forge, and the chapel where the stained glass sleeps dark. And above them all, the bell tower rises, made from stone quarried centuries ago. Its walls are rough and flecked with age. Vines crawl along the edges. Owls sometimes rest in its open slits. But now, only one creature moves toward it, the keeper of the morning. They say, no one knows how long the bellringer has walked this path. Some say he was chosen when he was a child and has never stopped. Others say he found the bell and the bell chose him. But all agree on this. The bell must ring, and it must ring before the light. The heavy wooden door creaks open. He steps inside, closing it behind him with care. A winding staircase coils upward, built of stone and darkened wood. Each step groans softly, like memories stirred from sleep. The air smells of dust and time. Higher and higher, until the village lies far below, and the stars are closer than the fields. At the top is the bell, a great bronze thing, dark and worn with the touch of centuries. It is said the bell was cast during the reign of a forgotten king, melted down from old swords and armor to form a guardian of peace, inscribed along its rim. Barely visible now is a phrase in Latin: vigilate, watch and pray. The bellringer runs his hand along the cool metal. He waits just a moment longer. The village must still be dreaming. And then, with a practiced hand, he takes the rope in both palms and pulls. Dong, dot. The sound is deep. It rolls out like mystic and slow and sacred. It travels beyond the rooftops and into the woods, over the fields, and across the riverbanks. Dung. Birds stir slightly. A candle flickers behind a shuttered window. The blacksmith's dog raises his head and then curls back to sleep. Dong. And then silence. Not an empty silence, but a full one, filled with waiting, listening, knowing. The bell is not just for people. The bell is for the land, for the old trees that remember names long forgotten, for the stream that hums beneath the mill, for the spirit said to dwell just beyond the forest's edge. Some say the bell keeps them at peace. Some say it reminds them of their pact. The bell does not command, it invites. It welcomes, it remembers. And when it rings, the day begins again. He stays for a moment longer, hand resting on the rope, not rushing, not hurrying. The village will wake in its own time, but he listens to the hush that follows, to the way the air feels warmer now, to the soft rustle of leaves below, and the earliest threads of gold brushing the horizon. Down in the village, the baker will soon rise. The children will stir in their beds. Smoke will curl from chimneys. The sound of wooden shutters opening will echo through narrow lanes. But for now, there is only the tower, and the mist that lingers just a little longer, because it, too, is listening. The bellringer lingers a little longer, his fingers trailing gently over the rope, as if the last chime still hums in the wood beneath his touch. And then softly, slowly he begins his descent. The stairs creak again, but this time, they sound content, as if the tower itself is sighing back into slumber. Each step is careful, each movement calm. The morning has begun, yes, but not all at once. In the village below, time unfolds like parchment, unrolling with care, line by line, light by light. Outside, the first threads of golden pink sky begin to unfurl behind the hills. The clouds blush gently with dawn, and the mist begins to lift. At the edge of the village, a young girl peeks through a cracked shutter. Her name is Lida. She is small, curious, and quiet. Most mornings, she stirs only after the scent of bread warms the air. But not today. Today, she heard the bell with her heart. Lida's grandmother once told her that the bell can speak, not in words, but in feelings. And this morning, it whispered something soft. A promise, maybe. Or a memory. She watches the bell tower from her window, wrapped in a blanket sewn from old wool and stories. She doesn't know the bellringer's name. No one really does. But every morning, she whispers a thank you to the dawn. And in her dreams, she sometimes sees a figure wrapped in gray, walking through starlight, guarding the edge of sleep, long ago. Before Lida's grandmother, before the village stones were laid one atop another, the land was watched over by Bell Guardian. It was believed that the world beneath the world, a spirit realm, slumbered lightly, just beneath the soil. And without the morning bell, the veil might blur, dreams might slip through, voices might be heard that weren't meant for the living. The bell was not only to wake the village, it was to wake reality. And so, in quiet places, bell towers were built high enough to reach heaven, but low enough for their chimes to kiss the ground. Each bell was cast with sacred symbols, some visible, others hidden. They say monks and craftsmen would whisper prayers into the molten metal so that when it cooled, it remembered how to sing. The bellringer emerges from the tower, pulling the hood a little higher. As a soft breeze curls down the lane, he walks slowly, not out of weariness, but out of reverence. The stones beneath his boots are old friends. Each house he passes greets him in its own way. A window unshuttered, a cat slipping across the sill, a door creaking gently open for morning air. He nods toward the chapel. It's stained glass, now kissed by sunlight. He tips his head to the baker's chimney, where a sleepy trail of smoke begins to rise. But still, no one waves. No one greets him aloud. There's an unspoken understanding. The bellringer moves like a dream, and to speak to a dream too directly might break the spell. Inside the bakery, warm light flickers. The oven is already lit, wood crackling, casting a golden glow over sacks of flour, clay jars of honey, and baskets waiting to be filled. Old Tomas, the baker, stretches his back and hums an ancient tune, one that his own father sang as they baked together years and years ago. He touches the wooden beam above the oven, carved with a tiny bell, and before shaping his dough, he bows his head just for a moment. Everyone has their rhythm in this village, but no one begins without the bell. The sun, at last, begins its gentle climb. It peers over the eastern hills, painting the world with hushes of amber and soft rose. The mist melts away from the rooftops. Frost thaws from the thatch, and the fields begin to stretch like they too are waking from dreams. The river catches light in its current. The churchyard stones glimmer faintly with dew. The crows in the steeple flap once, twice, then settle again. The day has begun, not loudly, not all at once, but with reverence and with rhythm. The bellringer returns home. He removes his cloak, folds it neatly. He warms his hands near a tiny hearth, now lit with a small, flickering flame. He pours warm water into a cup, a pinch of herbs, a slow stir. The steam rises gently, like a morning prayer, and then he sits, not to sleep, not yet, but to listen, to the wind outside, to the creak of old floorboard, to the distant echo of birdsong, and perhaps, just perhaps, to the quiet smile of the bell itself, still humming faintly through the stones. As the sun climbs softly above the village, light pours through a high, round window in the scribe's cottage. The glass is old, wavy, and hand-blown, and it casts shimmering shapes upon the worn stone floor. Beneath the light, Master Barin, the scribe, bends over, parchment, his quill whispering across the page. He is old, yes, but nimble in his mind. He's copied royal decrees, monastery prayers, and love letters alike. But today's is different. It is addressed to no one, and yet it is written with great care. It begins simply, to the one who rings the bell. In this village, there is an old tradition, a gentle, secret one. If a villager has something they must say, but cannot speak aloud, they may write it down in a letter never meant to be sent. Some hide theirs in the roots of trees. Others place them behind loose stones and walls. And a few, just a few, leave them near the bell top, not to be read, but to be received by the silence, by the stillness, by the one who listens without asking. Master Baran folds his letter carefully, ties it with twine, and places it inside a small wooden box carved with an oak leaf. He does not say what it contains, only that it carries weight and lightness. He places the box near his door, beneath the old bell carved into the beam above, and then he goes about his day, his steps just a little lighter than before. Across the lane, the blacksmith's forge has awakened, thick arms, so dark and apron, a rhythm that hums like thunder asleep. Clang, clang, but before he begins, before iron meets anvil, the blacksmith, he reaches for a piece of metal, not a blade, not a tool, but a tiny bell, rough-hewn, unfinished. He dips it in cool water, places it on the windowsill, and closes his eyes. He speaks a blessing not in words, but in breath. In some corners of the medieval world, blacksmiths were seen as keepers of magic, for they shaped earth into form. With fire, with will, with patience. This bell he makes is not to sell. It is not for coin. It is for the well down by the edge of the forest, where a child once fell ill and then was made well again. The blacksmith believes quietly that the bell's echo helps keep sickness away. And whether that's true or not, he rings it each morning, when no one else is listening. Down the narrow path, past the last row of cottages, there lies an ancient stone well. Its circle is cracked and moss-grown, its rope-worn, its bucket crooked. Yet it is never empty. Old women say it sings, children say it hums, and the wind often stops there for a while, as though catching its breath. Long ago, this well was called the Listening Mouth. Villagers once whispered secrets into it on solstice nights, believing the water would carry their wishes underground, to where dreams dwell in roots. Remember, even now, once a week, the bellringer leaves a smooth stone on the well's edge. Always just one, always round, and always at dusk. No one knows why, but none ever touch it. Back near the center of the village, young Lita has wandered into her grandmother's herb garden. Rows of thyme, chamomile, lavender, and mint sway gently in the warming breeze. She walks barefoot. The earth is soft, the grass cool, bees hum like lullabies. She kneels beside a patch of rosemary, where a small bell made of copper hangs from a crooked stick. She taps it with one finger. It chimes, light as a sigh. Her grandmother says the rosemary keeps the bad dreams away. And the bell, well, that calls the dreams worth keeping. Leda closes her eyes. She imagines the bellringer standing high in his tower, watching over them all. She doesn't know his name, but she feels safe when she thinks of him. And just before she opens her eyes again, she whispers softly, "Thank you, bellman." High in the tower, long after the bellringer is gone, and the village hums with the light of day, a raven lands quietly on the windowsill. Its feathers shimmer deep blue in the sun. It blinks once, twice, and hops along the ledge to the bell's side. It lets out a single, low call. Not harsh, but thoughtful. This raven has come every morning for 5 years. No one knows it, no one sees. But the bell always seems to echo a little differently when the raven is there, as though the sound has company. And so the day unfolds, not in haste, not in clamor, but in slow turns, like the hands of an old clock no longer counting, just keeping rhythm. The sun warms the cobblestones. Children chase chickens in quiet bursts of laughter. A window shutter creaks open. A cat dozes on a sunlit bench. And the bell, though now silent, still lingers in the air, its memory stitched into every breath of wind, every open door, every act done gently. For, in this village, nothing truly begins until the bell has rung. And even then, the quiet continues to ring long after. Beyond the humming mill wheel, past rows of barley, gold, and wheat still whispering in green, there lies an old forest path. It curves like a question mark, soft underfoot with moss and last year's fallen needles. No wagons roll here, no markets call, only travelers in silence, and the occasional visit from the bellringer. He walks here sometimes, just before dusk, when the light thins between the trees. Not many know. He never says, but those who have seen him speak of a curious thing. He does not walk with purpose, but with listening, as though he's waiting for the trees to say something first. Deeper into the woods, hidden beneath an overhang of ivy and bramble, dwells a man known simply as Eolan. Once he was a monk, then a healer, then a whisper. Now he is old and mostly quiet, except when speaking to birds or mixing dried nettle into his evening tea. He knows about the bell. He hears it each morning through the forest hush, and every time it rings, he closes his eyes, places one hand over his heart, and says, "It is still safe." He once told a visitor long ago that the bell keeps more than time. It keeps memory, and should it ever fall silent for more than a day, he said the trees would begin to forget us. But he smiles when he says this, as if to let the listener decide whether it's a warning or a comfort. That evening, when the sky turns the color of faded parchment, and the breeze carries a trace of mint and ash, the bellringer walks the path again. He carries nothing with him. No pack, no lantern, only silence. When he arrives at the hermit's hollow, he does not knock or call. He simply waits. Moments pass, long and slow, until the old man steps from behind a veil of hanging vines with a steaming cup in each hand. They do not speak at first. They sit on a fallen log, side by side, letting the woods breathe around them. Then the hermit says softly, "I heard the bell this morning." The bellringer nods, just once. "It sounded older," the hermit adds. The bellringer looks to the trees, his voice barely above the leaves. Some mornings it does. They sit without speaking for a time. The sky deepens. The stars begin to blink softly awake, and the breeze cools. Then the bellringer pulls from his sleeve a tiny pouch. He opens it gently. Inside, a single acorn rests, wrapped in linen. He places it between them. The hermit nods, recognizing it not as a seed, but as a memory. They watch it together in a growing dark. No words are needed. The past is present, and somewhere, in the quiet underbrush, a fox pads softly through the ferns, as if listening to. Night curls gently over the hills as the bellringer walks home. Lanterns glow in windows, casting long golden trails on the path. Lita is asleep, curled under a patchwork quilt, her tiny rosemary bell swaying in the window. The baker's ovens are dark again, but the scent of crusted rye lingers in the night air. Master Baron, the scribe, sits beside a candle, his eyes closed, his quill stilled. He dreams, perhaps, of letters never sent, and the blacksmith, strong and rests with one hand still curled around the hammer's wooden grip, as though he will shape dreams. 2. Given the chance, the village is quiet, not with emptiness, but with fullness, with trust, with peace. Far above, in the bell tower, the bronze-shaped breasts in the hush of night, moonlight dances across its curve, highlighting the old Latin inscription, Vigilate et ore, watch and pray. Though no one pulls the rope now, and the bell does not ring, its song lingers. It hums in the corners of eaves, in the rustle of linen drying on lines, in the hush between heartbeat and breath. It is not just a bell, but a heartbeat, a reminder, a guardian. And if one listens, truly listens, the chime can still be heard, echoing beneath the stars, deep in the night, while even the stars seem to blink more slowly. The bell dreams, not in the way humans do. Its dreams are made of echoes, of footfalls on stone, of soft voices lifted in prayer, of wind moving through beams and rafters. It remembers every time it has rung, every moment of stillness that followed, and every face that ever looked up from the village below. It remembers, too, the silence of wars, of storms, of the morning long ago when no one came to ring it. That was a cold, gray day. The birds did not fly, the well ran still, and even the trees did not move. But that silence ended, and the bell rang again. Since then, it has never been missed. There is a door beneath the base of the bell tower, hidden behind ivy and a tangle of stone. Few remember it exists. Even fewer know what lies behind it. Once, long ago, it was used often when the tower served not just as a watchpost, but as a place of retreat, of quiet learning and quiet listening. Monks once lived here in small stone cells, their prayers, simple and slow, marked by candlelight and rhythm. Inside the forgotten door, dust now rests on everything. Scrolls, long, curled, wooden cups, untouched, and a bell smaller than a hand, sitting on a table carved with vines. It has not rung in many, many years. But still, some nights, a soft shimmer of light slips from beneath the crack of that ancient door, as though someone, or something, remembers. Not all footsteps in the village are familiar. That morning, just before the bell rings, a traveler arrives. She wears a dark blue cloak, mud on her boots, and carries a satchel heavy with ink pots and parchment. Her name is Adeline, a traveling chronicler. She'll collect stories, not for coin, but for remembrance. She stays at the baker's loft, trading her tale of a flood in the southern plains for warm bread and a place to rest. When the bell rings the next morning, she wakes with a start and listens. She hears more than sound. She hears meaning. Later that day, she will write in her journal. The bell does not simply call the day, it carries the night with it, a soft handoff from shadow to sun. Later that morning, the bellringer walks his usual path. He does not look around often. But today, he pauses there, sitting quietly on the chapel's stone step. But in that second, there is recognition, not of face, but of understanding. She does not speak, neither does he. But as he passes, she places a folded square of parchment on the ground beside her. He does not pick it up, not right away. He walks on, pauses, waits until she's no longer watching. Then he returns and takes it. Later, back at his cottage, with the fire flickering low and a cup of root tea warm in his hand. He opens the paper. It contains only one sentence. Does the bell ever ring for the dreams that do not come true? He sits with the question, not trying to answer it, just listening to it. Outside, the wind picks up gently, tugging at the edge of the thatched roof. A leaf spins and rests, and somewhere beneath all that, a faint chime seems to hum from inside the old tower stone. That night, the bellringer returns to the tower. Not for duty, not for routine, but with something in his hands. Wrapped in soft wool, carried with care, is a small silver bell. It once hung inside the tower, a companion to the great one above. A bell for moments of quiet grief or soft thanksgiving. It has not rung in decades. But now, he holds it gently and places it on a wooden peg near the great bell's rope. It catches the moonlight like a drop of water, perfect and trembling. He does not ring it. Not yet, but in the morning, perhaps it will ring again. Perhaps the time has come. The stars gleam brighter than usual. The wind moves more slowly, as if cautious not to disturb the stillness. In her bed, Lyda dreams of a great forest of bells, each hanging from branches like fruit. In his forge, the blacksmith hears the sound of hammers underwater, echoing softly in dreams, not his own. And Adeline the chronicler writes a final line in her book before sleep claims her. The bell does not demand, it invites, and tonight I accept it. The next morning arrives quietly. The stars have barely faded from the sky. The rooftops still wear the hush of night, and the world seems caught between breath and stillness. Then, as expected, 3 deep chimes roll gently across the village. Dong, dong, dong. But today, after the 3rd echo fades, there is something new. A second tone, high and delicate, rises like a silver thread. The small bell has rung. No one speaks of it that day, but many hear it, and many pause, eyes lifted just slightly, as though recognizing the sound without quite remembering from where. That morning at breakfast, Lyda sits quietly with her bowl of porridge, the scent of cinnamon rising from her spoon. She doesn't speak at first, just stares at the window. Finally, she turns to her grandmother and asks, "Did you hear it?" Her grandmother looks up, surprised. "Hear what?" "Love." "The little one," Lyda whispers. "The other bell." Her grandmother says nothing at first, then slowly nods. "I haven't heard that bell since I was a girl," she says softly, "and it only rang on days when something important was about to happen." Lyda's eyes widen, "But not big important," her grandmother adds. "Not always. Sometimes quiet, important." And together they sit, not speaking further, but feeling something in the day has changed. From the baker's loft window, Adeline hears the small bell too. It makes her heart stir. Not like surprise, but like recognition, she writes in her journal. There are sounds that carry more than air. This one held memory. I felt it in the marrow. She doesn't know what the bell means, but she feels a pull now. A gentle urgency, like a story rising just beneath the surface of water, waiting to be caught with careful hands. She decides to stay in the village a little longer, to listen, to wait, because something old is waking. The bellringer returns to the tower that afternoon, not to ring, not to climb, just to sit beneath it. He places one hand on the stone wall, rough with age, cool to the touch. He listens not for sound, but for presence, and he remembers the last time the little bell rang. He was a boy then, new to the tower. The bellmaster at the time was old and nearly blind, but his hearing, his sense of when things were shifting, was sharp as rain. One morning, after the great bell had sounded, the bellmaster reached for the small bell and said, "This is the sound we ring for truth, the kind that walks softly and changes everything." That memory has lived quietly in the bellringer's bones ever since. And now, it feels close again. That evening, as twilight turns, the sky to rose and copper, Lyda walks with her grandmother to the old stone well. It's something they do on Thursdays, bring in leftover bread for the birds. and a sprig of rosemary for the edge. But today, something glints in the stone. Lyda kneels and finds a folded square of paper, tucked neatly into the groove of the well's lip, held in place with a smooth river pebble. She unfolds it slowly. There are only 4 words, written in a fine and careful hand. The silence is listening. Her grandmother reads over her shoulder and says nothing. They leave the note where they found it. Some words are meant to stay where they land. That night, after the village is gone, still, a single candle burns in the chapel window. It is not a feast day, not a vigil, not a wedding or birth, just a candle. The priest, an old man with trembling hands and a heart gentle as rain, sits beneath the altar with his palms resting open. He remembers the old rites, not the grand ones with incense and song, but the quiet rites, the waiting ones. He lights the candle, not as a symbol, but as a welcome, a sign that the village, even as it dreams, is ready to receive something unknown. Beyond the mill, where the path turns, mossy and dim, the forest watches, not with eyes, not with breath, but with knowing. The trees shift slightly in the wind, the ferns curl tighter, and the small animals, usually restless beneath moonlight, stand still. There is a change in the air, a note, a presence, something carried in the bell's second song. And far in the distance, hidden from all eyes but the stars, a door begins to open, a door that has not moved for generations. At first light, before even the first bell chime, a strange feather appears on the bellringer's window ledge. It is long and narrow, midnight black, with a faint shimmer of indigo, as though dipped in moonlight. He finds it resting gently against the wood, no breeze, no sound. He does not touch it, not yet. Instead, he stands quietly and watches how it leans, almost as if it listens. Then, without a word, he lights a fire and begins his day. Some signs do not ask for understanding, only notice. High above, perched near the great bell, the raven waits. It returns just after the final chime each morning. Always silent, always still. But today, it does something new. It hops down onto the wooden beam where the small bell now hangs. It pecks once, softly, near the rope's end, then flies away. The bell does not ring, but the movement, the weight of presence, lingers like a promise. Some say ravens are messengers between worlds. Some say they carry the dreams of those who forget to dream. Either way, the bell knows this raven well, and this time, it feels as though the raven knows what's coming. That evening, as dusk pools like ink in the folds of the valley, a figure appears on the horizon, not from the river road, not from the merchant's trail, but from the forest. They wear no cloak, carry no pack, only a walking stick carved from dark, twisted wood, and a necklace of bells tiny and delicate resting against their chest. The figure moves without rush, not hiding, not seeking, simply arriving. They pause just beyond the edge of the village, at the point where cobble meets root. They do not speak. They only look up to the bell tower. Then they sit cross-legged beneath the old sycamore tree and close their eyes. From her window at the baker's loft, Adeline sees the figure beneath the tree. She watches them in the gathering dark, a quill in one hand, her journal open on her lap. She does not go to them, but she writes. Tonight, a choir arrived in human shape. Their bells made no sound, and yet I heard them clearly. She cannot explain why, but she feels the chapter has turned. The village is entering something. Not danger, not trouble, but depth. The chapel windows glow again that night, not with one candle, but 2. The second is smaller, set in the eastern sill. For centuries, that sill was used only for sunrise, prayers, for hope, for guidance. Now, the priest places it there with trembling hands, muttering a line from a very old prayer. For the visitors we know, and those who come by night, he does not know why he says it, only that it feels timely. And across the lane, In her tiny bed, Lida dreams again of the forest full of bells. But this time, one of them rings softly and does not stop. That night, as wind folds gently over the rooftops and the village surrenders to rest, the bellringer dreams. He has not dreamed in many years. Or perhaps he is not remembered, but this night he finds himself standing at the base of the tower, not as he is now, but as a boy. The door is locked, the bell is silent, and behind him, the forest breathes with a slow, pulsing light. He hears a sound. Not the bell, not a voice, but a heartbeat, ancient and wide. Like the earth itself, he reaches for the door. Just before he touches it, he wakes, and for the first time in a long while, he feels not just duty, but curiosity. The next morning arrives, but slower. The mist hangs longer than usual. The birds delay their song, and the village feels as though it is holding its breath. Still, the bellringer dresses, wraps his cloak, and walks the familiar path. But as he approaches the tower, he sees something waiting at the foot of the steps. A bell. Not one of his, not from the chapel, nor the forge, nor the old well. It is delicate, bone white, hung on a black ribbon. A gift, or a warning, or an invitation. He lifts it gently and hears not a sound. It is a bell made for silence, the kind that comes before change. He stands inside the tower now, the rope before him, the bell above. But for the first time in years, he hesitates, not from fear, not from doubt, but from a deep knowing that today is not like other days. In his palm rests the silent white bell, left at the foot of the tower. He sets it gently beside the base of the rope. Its surface is smooth as eggshell, and yet it feels full. He closes his eyes, listens to the quiet, to the breath of the village below, to the heartbeat of the bell above. Then, slowly, with reverence, he pulls the rope. Dong, dot, dot, dong, dot, dong. 3 deep notes, rolling like velvet thunder. But then, a pause, longer than usual. And then, the soft silver ring of the small bell. Ding. And then, again, dong. A 4th chime. This has never happened. Not in Lida's lifetime. Not in the scribe's memories. Not even in the old priest's records. The bell has always rung thrice. 3 notes. 3 blessings, 3 keepings. Today, it rings 4. No one speaks of it, but everyone feels it. The baker pauses mid. The smith stills his hammer mid. The shepherd on the farthest hill stands motionless, watching the tower from afar. And Adeline, already dressed, already writing, presses her quill to the parchment, then stops. She looks out the window and whispers, so the story turns. The figure beneath the sycamore opens their eyes. They've sat there through the night, unmoving, unblinking, a silent vigil. When the 4th bell echoes, they rise slowly, dust falling from their dark robes like old leaves. They do not look around. They do not knock on doors. They walk directly, calmly, to the well at the forest's edge. There, they place a single item. A folded cloth with something inside. Then they vanish into the trees, as silently as they came. Lida and her grandmother walk the well path again that afternoon, as they always do. This time, they find the cloth before they even set down their rosemary. It is soft, the color of dusk, and wrapped with a simple cord of bark and twine. Inside, a stone, but not just any stone. Smooth, black, carved with a symbol, a bell within a circle, and beneath it, etched faintly into the cloth. When the 4th rings, the door opens. Her grandmother sits slowly on the stone ledge. She holds the symbol in both hands, as if weighing not just a stone, but memory. I've seen this before, she murmurs. Only once. Before the fire, before the silence that lasted a year. Lida looks up. The silence. Her grandmother nods. There was a time when no one could ring the bell because the rope turned to dust. Long ago, before Lida was born, before even the bellringer came, a fire swept through part of the village. Not a roaring fire, a quiet one. It took no homes, but it left a mark. The tower was untouched, but the bell rope braided of sacred flax and oak fiber burned clean through, and when they tried to replace it, the bell would not sound. Not a crack, not a hum. It remained silent for a year and a day. The villagers took it as an omen. They left offerings at the tower base. They whispered old prayers from books now lost. And finally, when the wind shifted and the trees began to sway again, a new rope was braided by the hermits of the wood. The bell rang once more, and all breathed again. But the fourth chime, no one had heard that until now. That evening, as shadows gather again, Adolin walks the tower path alone. She carries with her only her journal and the drawing she made of the carved stone Ladar found. She walks slowly, eyes scanning the base of the tower. Then, just behind a veil of ivy, she finds it the old door, barely visible, swollen from age and moss, but marked by the faint circle of a bell. She kneels, runs her fingers over the grooves, and then a soft sound, like breath against wood. The door opens, just a crack, enough to let through a thread of warm air, and the scent of parchment, wax, and old stone. She does not enter, not yet. She only whispers, "So you're still listening?" He steps into the clearing without surprise. She does not turn, as though she already sensed him behind her. "You found it," he says. She nods. The fourth ring opened it. A pause. He says nothing more. They stand in silence, to quiet watches at the edge of something old. Then, she offers him the drawing, the bell in the circle, and softly, he answers, "It's not just a bell, it's a key." The door creaks open slow, deliberate, revealing a room bathed in the stillness of long years. Dust floats like snowflakes in golden lamplight. The air smells of beeswax, cedar, and silence. Inside, a small writing table, a row of shallow shelves, and in the center of the far wall, a mural. Adolin steps in first, followed quietly by the bellringer. Nida speaks. Their eyes adjust to the dim. The mural shows the village not as it is, but as it once was. Smaller, cruder, yet alive with color. Above the painted rooftops, a single bell hovers in the sky, its sound drawn as golden lines spreading outward, touching trees, wells, and hearts alike. Beneath it is a phrase, written in ancient script. "Only when silence is full will the bells sing true." The bellringer breathes it aloud, not as words, but as memory. Adolin moves to the shelves. There, resting beneath a layer of dust, are scrolls wrapped in linen and bound with thin copper rings. She unwraps one slowly. Inside, not decrees or prayers, but stories, drawn and inked in fine, spiraling hand. Stories of how the bell was first hung, with the child who once heard it in her dreams before it was ever built, of the blacksmith who forged the clapper from a meteor stone, and most curiously, of the 9 ringings. Adolin's breath catches. There have only ever been 3, until now, the 4th, but this scroll speaks of 9, each said to come once in a generation, each unlocking a layer of listening deeper than the last. She turns to the bellringer. He nods. "I always knew there was more than the waking." That evening, though no bell is rung, a strange thing happens. The village hears the 4th chime again. Just once, no rope is pulled, no hand lifts the bell, but still, it rings, and the sound moves through the air, like honey through water, settling gently into every crack of cobble and wood. Lida hears it in a dream, and in the dream, the forest of bells sways softly, whispering her name. Master Baron the scribe, waking with a start, finds his old ink jar warm to the touch, though no fire burns, and the priest opens the chapel door to find a ring of wax melted into the stones outside. shaped like a perfect bell. That night, near midnight, the cloaked figure returns. Not from the forest, but from the mountain path no one travels anymore. Their feet are bare, yet unscathed. Their robes gather, no dirt, and this time, they carry something wrapped in red velvet. They walk straight to the chapel, leave the bundle at the door, and vanish once more into the hush. Inside the bundle, a small, unlit lantern, and a folded map made of bark paper and threaded with silver ink. At the top, a single word glows faintly: 6. The next morning, Edelin and the bellringer spread the map on the table inside the forgotten room. It shows the village, but not as it stands now. It shows layers beneath the soil, beneath the wells, beneath the very foundation stones. 9 circles, each one marked by a tiny bell. The outer ring is where the village now lives. But the sixth is deep, beneath the base of the tower itself. A chamber, a heart, and next to it, written in the margins: when the 4th rings, the 6th awakens. The bellringer closes his eyes. He remembers a dream, not from sleep, but from childhood. A dream of stairs that turn forever downward, each step carved with names that had not yet been spoken. In the days that follow, something new begins to happen. Children begin to hum melodies they've never been taught. Soft tunes, round and slow, full of pauses. They draw circles in the dirt, trace bells on windows with the tips of their fingers. And some, like Lida, begin to speak of the echoes. They're not just sounds, she tells her grandmother. They're questions, like the village is asking itself who it really is. No one tells them to stop, because the adults feel it too. A deep remembering rising through their feet, like water rising through roots. On the 6th morning after the 4th bell rang, Adeline lights the velvet-trapped lantern. Not with fire, but with sound. She rings the small white bell, the one left at the tower's base, and as it chimes once clear and high, the lantern flares with soft golden glow. Inside, instead of flame, a bell-shaped light spins slowly in the center, casting shadows that look like doors. Opening, the bellringer watches, eyes wide. "It's time," he whispers, "for the 6th." With lantern in hand, and the map carefully folded in her satchel, Adeline stands beside the bellringer beneath the tower. The others are there too. Lida, holding her rosemary bell. The old priest, robes swaying like mist. Master Baron, eyes watery with the weight of memory. No one speaks. The forgotten door opens wider now, revealing stone steps spiraling downward into the earth. Smooth with age, cool to the touch. With every step they take, the air grows warmer, not with heat, but with presence. The walls are marked with symbols: bells, birds, hands, circles within circles, and all around them, a low hum grows stronger. Not noise, but resonance, like a thought that never needed words. At the bottom of the steps, they find it, a chamber carved entirely from pale stone, round and perfect. At its center stands a pillar, and atop it, a bell made of glass. It glows faintly from within, light moving like breath. No rope, no clapper, only stillness. Surrounding the chamber, 9 shallow niches in the wall, 8 still empty, 1 now filled. In the filled one, a symbol matching the stone Lida found the bell within a circle, and carved around the base of the room. Only those who remember without knowing may ring what has no sound. They do not ring the glass bell. Instead, they sit, all of them on the cool stone floor, hands open, hearts quiet. The lantern rests beside the bellringer, casting gentle loops of gold across the chamber walls, and they listen to the air, to the echo of their own breath, to something beneath the silence. Then it begins. One by one, the walls hum, soft vibrations, like voices speaking in the language before words. Leda begins to hum and answer, the tune she dreamed in the forest of bells. The old priest joins her, his voice tremulous and deep. Soon, all of them are singing without song, just tone. just breath, just remembering. And the glass bell glows brighter, not with light, with recognition. No one strikes it, no hand is raised, but the bell rings, not through the ears, but through the bones. A pure, full chime, bright as sunrise and soft as snowfall. It rises through the tower, through the earth, through the roots of trees and walls and wells, and the entire village hears it, not as sound, but as clarity. They stop where they are, on doorsteps, in fields, in dreams, and they understand. For one moment, the village is completely still, completely aware, completely whole. In the days that follow, nothing changes on the surface. The sky still rains. The baker still bakes. Children still chase chickens through the square. But something deeper has shifted. People speak more gently, listen more slowly, rest more fully. And every morning, when the three great chimes roll across the hills, there's now a pause, then a fourth, then silence, then peace. She stays for a while, recording, drawing, walking the edges of knowing. Her final journal entry reads, "I came seeking story. I found silence that sings. Not all bells are for calling. Some are for remembering who we've always been." She leaves the journal at the foot of the bell tower, wrapped in bark cloth and rosemary, a gift to the next listener. One morning, a traveler arrives, a boy no more than he wears worn shoes and carries nothing. Lita watches him from her window as her little rosemary bell sways in the wind. He looks up at the tower, smiles gently, and hums a tune she knows but has never heard aloud. She smiles back, and without thinking, whispers, "You're just in time." The tower stands quiet again. The great bell rests in the rafters, the small bell beside it. The glass bell sleeps below, in the deep hush where memory dwells, and in the space between each chime. In the quiet after the last echo, there lingers a stillness. It is not empty. It is not waiting. It is full, full of all that has been, all that is, and all that will be remembered each morning when the village bell rings at dawn. Thank you for journeying into this soft, hidden world. If you'd like this story as a single, printable file or in audio script format, just let me know. Sweet dreams.